In a world that teaches women to be pretty, polite, and pleasing, be unforgettable instead. He might look at your curves, at your clothing, at your body, but that's not what keeps him awake at night. What melts a man's mind, what haunts him in the best way, is psychological. It's deeper, quieter. It's the kind of energy that doesn't scream, it lingers. Today, we're not just talking about attraction. We're unlocking the psychology of desire. The kind that doesn't fade after a first date. The kind that lives in the back of his mind while he's sipping coffee, stuck in traffic, lying in bed. It's the part of you he can't quite explain but can't forget. And before we go deeper into this, can you do me one favor? Press that like button, hit subscribe. I don't have a team of editors or flashy gimmicks, just my voice, my time, and my soul poured into every word of this content. If you feel something stir inside you by the end of this video, that's the only return I ask, because I'm building this for you and with you. Now, hey ladies, imagine this. You're standing in front of a mirror, not to fix your lipstick, but to look yourself in the eye. You don't smile out of habit, you see yourself. And in that moment, you don't ask, am I good enough? You know that the right man won't just see your body, he'll feel your presence. That's the shift we're talking about. Because somewhere along the way, we were sold a lie, that if you wanted a man to want you, you had to perform, be a little sexier, a little cooler, laugh a little louder at his jokes, send the perfect text, respond at the perfect time. And yet, despite all that choreography, you still wonder why you're not the one he remembers. But let me tell you something, my friends. A woman who makes a man's mind melt doesn't come from a checklist. She comes from somewhere deeper, somewhere still. She doesn't need to chase because her energy walks in the room before her heels do. You know the kind of woman I'm talking about, the one who says one sentence and somehow the entire room feels it. She's not louder, she's not flashier, but she's present. And that presence, that's what makes a man pause mid-conversation and think, wait, who is she? Because let's be real, anyone can post thirst traps, flirt through emojis, or wear something tight. But the woman he remembers, the one that haunts him gently like the hook of a song he can't stop humming, she didn't seduce him with noise. She spoke to something inside him that words don't reach. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that's the woman he obsesses over, not the polished version, not the people pleaser, the one who knows herself so deeply that even her silence has gravity. So no more playing small, no more shrinking to fit into someone else's definition of low maintenance or chill. You weren't meant to be digestible, you were meant to be felt, because when you speak from your center, when you lead with energy instead of effort, you don't just attract a man, you anchor him in thought, in feeling, in memory. And that's what we're diving into today, 9 psychological turn-ons that don't just get a man's attention, they melt his mind. Stay with me, my friends, because when you master this, not only will you stop wondering if he's thinking about you, he'll be wondering how he ever didn't. Number 1, mystery over exposure. In the age of constant access, the rarest luxury is what you can't immediately understand. Mystery over exposure, my friends. That's where the real power lives. Because yes, he may admire the way your dress hugs your body, the way your lips move when you speak, the way your laugh breaks through the noise. But what hooks him, what lingers, is what he can't name. Jung once said, the meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And what transforms a man, truly, is not surface. It's sensation without explanation. It's when he meets a woman and walks away feeling a little undone, because he couldn't quite put his finger on why. Now imagine this, he's walking through an art gallery, beautiful paintings line the walls, vibrant, obvious, labeled, but then he stops. There's one piece framed in quiet shadows, minimal colors, no title, and yet he can't stop staring. It's not screaming for attention, but it has it completely. Why? Because it's asking something of him, inviting interpretation, making space for him to lean in. You, my friend, are that art. And yet so many women are terrified of being misunderstood, afraid if they don't explain themselves perfectly, show all the right angles, give the full story, he'll lose interest. What if he thinks I'm hiding something? What if I seem cold? What if I don't say enough? Let me flip that for you. What if the fact that you don't hand everything over is the very thing that makes him want more? Because when a woman leads with mystery, not as a game, but as a form of self-respect, she doesn't feel like a project to complete. She feels like a story to unfold. And here's the truth. When you tell him your entire life in the first 3 conversations, when your Instagram is a highlight reel of every emotion you've ever felt, when you rush to prove how open and available you are, you think you're being vulnerable. But often, you're stealing the magic of discovery. We forget. Men fall in love through exploration. Curiosity is their entry point to obsession. So let him wonder. Let him earn the next layer of you. Let him walk away from that first date thinking, I don't even know why, but I can't stop thinking about her. That's not withholding. That's grace. It's knowing that your truth is still unfolding and not everyone gets front row seats on day one. It's choosing to be revealed, not displayed. Not because you're hiding, but because you're rooted. You see, a woman in her power doesn't rush to be known. She lets her presence plant a seed and then walks away with the quiet confidence that it will bloom in his mind on its own. And the best part, when he does earn that next layer of you, when he finally hears the story behind your eyes or sees the tenderness beneath your calm, he values it more. Because he knows he had to pay attention to see it. And that, my friends, is what makes a man lean in again and again. So don't be afraid of the pause, and don't be afraid to leave something unsaid. Don't be afraid to say, not yet. Because the woman who's unforgettable isn't the one who gives him everything. She's the one who lets him discover something new about her every time they meet. And what's coming next? Oh, we're just getting started. Because now that you understand the power of mystery, it's time to talk about something just as potent. The subtle art of feminine command. Stay with me. Number 2, the power of subtle command. True power is not in how loud you speak, but in how deeply your presence is felt without saying a word. My friends, let's talk about something most people completely misunderstand. Commanding energy doesn't mean taking control, it means creating direction. It's not about overpowering a man, it's about being so grounded, so centered in yourself that he instinctively aligns with your rhythm. You don't shout, you don't plead, you don't chase, you guide with grace. Because feminine energy at its highest doesn't force anything. It doesn't pull a man by the collar or drag him toward connection. It simply sets the tone and trusts that the right man will tune in. Imagine this. You walk into a jazz lounge. 2 singers take the stage that night. One belts out every note like she's trying to prove something. Pitch perfect, loud, technically flawless. The other, she barely raises her voice. She sings like smoke, like silk sliding across your skin. She doesn't try to grab attention, and yet the entire room leans forward. That's subtle command. That's what a man feels when you speak with intention, not pressure. When you drop suggestions that feel like invitations, not interrogations. You and me should check that place out sometime. Simple, confident, no begging, no question mark, just a spark lit and left hanging in the air. And here's the thing, some of you worry. But won't that sound too bold? What if I come off too forward? Shouldn't he be the one leading? Let me tell you something. A woman who knows her worth doesn't wait for permission to create moments. She knows that emotional leadership isn't masculine or feminine. It's mature. And men, real men, are not threatened by that kind of confidence. In fact, they crave it. Because here's what no one tells you. Most men are silently waiting for a woman who can help them feel something real without needing to explain or push. They're tired of guessing games, tired of the passive-aggressive dance, tired of being asked, "What are we?" when no one's actually set the energy for what could be. When you speak with subtle command, you don't corner a man. You offer him direction without demanding a decision. That's the difference. One says, "Do you want to hang out sometime?" The other says, "You and me? We'd kill a wine and jazz night." Same intention, entirely different energy. The first one waits for validation, and the second one trusts her vibe. Because feminine power isn't loud, it's influential. It doesn't beg, it broadcasts. And when a man feels that kind of quiet certainty, he doesn't feel controlled, he feels drawn in, like a river pulled by gravity. You're not telling him what to do, you're showing him how things could feel. That's leadership from the feminine. That's a turn on he never saw coming. So from this moment on, I want you to speak like a woman who doesn't need to persuade. Speak like someone who already knows the value of her presence and lets her suggestions land like poetry, not pressure. This is where you stop waiting to be chosen and start inviting connection on your terms, in your tone, and at your rhythm. And next, my friends, we're going deeper, because now that you know how to set the tone, I'm going to show you how to speak directly to a man's unconscious mind, the place where real attraction lives, breathes, and gets hooked. Stay with me. Number 3, speak to the unconscious, not the ego. Real connection doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in the space between words, where emotion lives. If you want to stay in a man's thoughts, really stay, you have to speak to the part of him that's not keeping score, not calculating, not guarded. You have to speak to his unconscious, my friends. Because the ego, that's where he hears compliments, but the unconscious, that's where he feels remembered. Most people never get past the ego. They stay on the surface. You're cute, you're smart, you're successful. And listen, that's nice, but it's also forgettable. Because those are things he already knows. He's heard them. They don't challenge him. They don't touch him. But when you say something like, there's something in your silence that makes me feel calm, or the way you notice little things, it's like your mind is always 10 steps ahead. Now you've reached a different level. You've tapped into the part of him he doesn't show everyone. That's when the connection goes from casual to chemical. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And let me tell you, this applies to attraction just as much as it does to healing. When you reflect something back to a man that he hasn't put words to yet, you don't just make an impression, you wake something up. You're not just flirting, you're becoming a mirror, a muse, a feeling. And it's not about being poetic or trying too hard. It's about paying real attention. You listen with your intuition, not just your ears. You speak not to flatter, but to reflect. Because when he feels seen in a way he's never been seen before, he doesn't just remember the words, he remembers you. So the next time you want to leave a mark, skip the surface. Speak like you've already met the part of him no one else takes the time to see. And what we're diving into next, it's going to flip something inside you, because now that you know what to say, I'm going to show you how to reflect his deeper identity back to him in a way that bonds him to you like a flame to oxygen. Stay with me. Number 4, the mirror effect. Reflect his strength back to him. We fall in love not just with people, but with the version of ourselves they reflect back to us. Let's get one thing straight, my friends. Men don't just fall for beauty, they fall for identity. And when you learn to reflect back the best version of who he is or who he could be, you don't just attract him, but you imprint on him. And this is what I call the mirror effect. Because here's the truth. A man becomes emotionally attached to the woman who makes him feel like more than he already believes he is. Not because she flatters him, but because her energy sees something inside him and holds it up like a mirror he forgot existed. Imagine this. He's been walking through life seeing himself in low-res mirrors, workplace approval, old wounds, past relationships that made him feel like he had to shrink or prove something. But then you show up, and when you look at him, you don't just see what he is, you reflect what he could become. You say things like, you have a presence that makes people feel safe. That's rare. Or, with you, I feel like we could build something powerful. You don't say it to manipulate. You don't say it to get a reaction. You say it because you feel it. And that's what makes it land. And maybe there's a part of him that hasn't fully stepped into that version of himself yet. But hearing it in your voice, he starts to believe it's possible. That's what makes a man attached to a woman. Not just desire, not just chemistry, but a sense of elevation. The feeling that when he's with you, he's closer to the man he wants to be. And I know what some of you might be thinking. But isn't that just boosting his ego? No, it's not ego stroking, it's soul stirring. Because you're not just saying you're great, you're saying there's something inside you that feels bigger than this moment, and I see it. You're not validating, you're awakening. And in doing so, you're not just attractive, you're unforgettable. Because he's not just falling for you, he's falling for who he gets to be when he's around you. Next up, We're stepping into a whole new dimension because once you know how to reflect that strength, you need to learn how to hold it without noise, without effort, without fear. It's time to talk about the magnetism of emotional stillness. Stay with me. Number 5, emotional stillness is magnetic. Your presence is your power, not how loud you are, but how still you can be in the moment most people run from. Let's slow this down, my friends, because in a world full of noise, notifications, and nervous energy, a woman who knows how to be still becomes unforgettable. That stillness, that quiet, grounded presence, it doesn't whisper, "Pick me." It commands attention without saying a word. You see, anxious energy pushes, it reaches, it clings, and it usually comes from fear. Fear of silence, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear he'll lose interest if there's a pause in the conversation. But here's the truth. Real feminine power doesn't panic in the pause. She owns it. She breathes through it. She lets him feel the weight of her presence in that sacred space where most women would rush to fill the silence. Imagine this. He's sitting across from you at dinner. The conversation flows, then suddenly, there's a pause. Most people would scramble, laugh nervously, change the subject, ask a filler question. But you just take a sip of your drink. You hold eye contact, no tension, no need to perform. You're not waiting for him to impress you, and you're certainly not performing to impress him. And that right there is when something shifts inside him. His nervous system starts to settle because your energy isn't coming from insecurity, it's coming from self-trust. You're not afraid of the moment, you are the moment, and that's rare. Most women try to attract with volume, by being funny enough, sexy enough, cool girl enough, but attraction doesn't live in noise, it lives in vibration. And your vibration is clearest when you're calm, rooted, and not performing. That stillness, that's what makes a man say later, "She didn't even flinch when I paused. She just looked at me like she already knew." Because you do know. You know that real connection doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from being more present. And the woman who knows her own worth doesn't rush to prove it. She lets the energy speak before her words do. So stop trying to out-talk the moment. Let the moment come to you. And where we're heading next, it's time to play. Because after stillness comes the spark. And I'm going to show you how a little playful suggestion can activate a man's imagination in ways that logic never could. Stay with me. Number 6, playful suggestion triggers dopamine. Attraction isn't always about what's said. Sometimes it's about the picture your words quietly paint in his mind. Let's shift the energy a bit, my friends, because now that we've rooted into stillness, it's time to stir the air. A little tease, a playful nudge, not to perform, not to entertain, but to activate his imagination where true desire lives. And this is where playful suggestion comes in. And when done right, it doesn't just make him smile, it releases a hit of dopamine in his brain. A little mental high caused by nothing more than your words sparking a possibility. You and me? We'd probably start a food truck and argue over which playlist we'd blast while making tacos. You didn't make a joke, you didn't try to be sexy, but suddenly he's seeing it. You and him, side by side, music playing, laughing over salsa and burnt tortillas. He's not thinking about a pickup line, he's thinking about a moment. That's the secret right there. A powerful turn-on isn't a punchline, it's a scenario. Because men don't just crave excitement, they crave belonging inside a memory that hasn't happened yet. And when you give them a glimpse of that through lightness and imagination, you become the voice that keeps replaying later, in the shower, in the car, at 2 a.m. when he should be asleep. And don't get it twisted, this doesn't mean being the cool girl or pretending to be carefree. It's not about being low maintenance or goofy. It's about owning your feminine magnetism with levity. It's about suggesting just enough to make him lean in without ever chasing a laugh. Because playful energy, when grounded in self-trust, isn't childish. It's magnetic. It suggests depth without pressure, chemistry without complication. And for the woman who knows how to wield that balance, she doesn't just turn him on, she lights him up. So next time you feel that flirty energy rising in your chest, let it out. Casually, smoothly, no performance, just presence and play. Let him feel the moment you're painting. And what's coming next? Now that we've lit the spark, it's time to master the move that most women miss, the one thing that takes your attraction from chemistry to obsession. Stay with me. Number 7, the drop it and walk strategy. The most unforgettable things in life are rarely repeated, and they're just left hanging in the air, echoing quietly in the back of the mind. Let's talk about something most women don't even realize they're doing, undoing their own power by trying to manage the moment after it's already landed. You say something bold, something beautiful, and then you hover, waiting to see how he reacts, watching his face, listening for the approval, needing the validation. My friends, this is where your magic evaporates. Enter what I call the drop it and walk strategy. It's simple, but it's potent. Say it, let it land, walk away, but let me paint it for you. You're mid-conversation, the energy is flowing. He says something about how much he loves getting into a little harmless trouble. You lean in slightly, lock eyes, and say with a soft smile, "You and me would definitely get into trouble." Then you smile, sip your drink, and change the subject. You don't stare him down. You don't giggle nervously. You don't wait for him to respond like you're waiting for a grade on a school paper, because you're not performing it. You're dropping emotional seeds. And what do we know about seeds? You don't yank them out of the dirt 5 seconds after planting to see if they've grown. You trust the process. You trust your impact, because if it landed, and trust me, it did, he'll remember it. Not because you said it twice, but because you left it there, floating, inviting him to play with the thought later. That's what makes your energy irresistible. It's not just what you say, it's that you have the grace to let it go. Men are used to women fishing for a reaction, trying to make something stick. But the woman who says something powerful and then walks away, she becomes a thought loop, a memory, a mystery. She's not chasing the moment, she is the moment. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to clarify, to soften the blow, don't. Drop it, smile, walk. Because confidence isn't just in the delivery, it's in the release. And coming up next, we're about to go mythic. Because there's a reason these subtle moments hit so hard, and it has everything to do with how the unconscious mind speaks in symbols, not sentences. Stay with me. Number 8, anchored confidence feels like home. True confidence isn't loud. It's the quiet, steady knowing that says, "I'm already enough," whether you see it or not. Let's drop into something deep now, my friends. Something most people don't talk about when it comes to attraction, but it's at the very core of why a man stays. It's not the curves, not the clever jokes, not even the chemistry. It's the safety of your energy, anchored confidence. Now I know what you might be thinking. Safety? Isn't that boring? But I'm not talking about the safety that comes from playing small, being agreeable, or holding back to avoid conflict. And I'm talking about the kind of safety that feels like emotional containment, the kind that says, you can show up as you are and I won't collapse. That kind of woman, she becomes unforgettable. She becomes home, because whether he admits it or not, a man is looking for something his nervous system can rest into. He spent his life in performance mode, at work, in the gym, even in past relationships, always proving, always striving, always calculating. But when he meets a woman who's grounded, who doesn't flinch at silence, who doesn't over-explain her presence, who walks through the room like she's already full, his shoulders relax, his walls lower. And here's the twist. When his body feels safe, his mind becomes obsessed. He starts replaying the way you listened, the way you didn't rush to impress, the way you simply were, anchored, present, unshaken. He's not addicted to the drama. He's addicted to the stillness you offer, that calm assurance, that subtle, unspoken message. I'm not here to chase, I'm here to experience, and I'm already whole. And you can't fake this kind of energy. It doesn't come from memorizing phrases or playing games. It comes from doing your inner work, from knowing that your worth isn't something to perform. It's something you sit in, like a throne. And the more deeply you sit in it, the more you draw in a man who doesn't just want to touch your body, he wants to breathe your peace. So if you've ever felt like you had to be more exciting to keep his attention, let that go. What holds him isn't chaos. it's clarity. And next, we're going to decode exactly why that clarity hits so deep. Because the male psyche doesn't think in logic, it thinks in symbols. Stay with me. Number 9, you're not the pursuer, you're the prize. A woman in her worth doesn't chase love, she reminds love where to find her. Let's close this right, let's bring it home. You're not the pursuer, you're the prize. Not because you play hard to get, not because you follow rules, but because you know who you are and you walk like it. Attraction, real attraction, is not a performance. It's not about angles, filters, or trying to be the coolest, smartest, most interesting woman in the room. It's not about doing more. It's about meaning more. Let him remember the woman who looked at him like she saw his soul and didn't need to sell hers for his attention. That's the kind of presence that lingers. That's the kind of woman who haunts him in the best, most beautiful way. These aren't tactics, my friends. These are truths. Soul-level truths. And when you embody them, when you live from them, you stop trying to earn a man's affection because you already carry your own. He doesn't chase you out of desperation. He chases you because your energy heals something in him he didn't even know was aching. So walk with that anchored confidence. Speak with that subtle power. Let the world and the right man feel the weight of your presence. And if this resonated with you, press that like button, hit subscribe, not just for me, but for you, because this is the space where we don't chase love. We become it. Stay grounded, stay glowing, and I'll see you in the next one.